I suppose there is a question in there, and the answer is that the entire thrust of American policy in Venezuela is to support the Venezuelan people's effort to restore democracy to their country. That's our policy.
I don't think anybody disputes that.
Hold up. Did we just time travel? Because a Democrat just opened a hearing by dragging out a file from the Reagan era like she found it in a museum gift shop. No questions, no policy, just straight-up courtroom cosplay. She's throwing around words like genocide, war crimes, and Iran-Contra like she's auditioning for a Netflix documentary, while the Republican witness is sitting there wondering if he accidentally walked into an episode of Cold Case, Congress edition. And here's the best part. She's not even asking questions. She's just yelling accusations, cutting him off, then demanding yes or a no, like she's hosting a game show called Smear a Republican. This isn't oversight, this is political karaoke with a grudge. If you want to see how fast a hearing turns into a hit job, smash that like button, subscribe, and don't move. Let's watch the full clip before I give you the full breakdown.
Ms. Omar.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your testimonies. Mr. Adams, in 1991, you pleaded guilty to 2 counts of withholding information from Congress regarding your involvement in the Iran-Contra affair, for which you were later pardoned by President George H.W. Bush. I fail to understand why members of this committee or the American people should find any testimony that you give today to be truthful.
If I can respond to that.
It wasn't a question.
That
was not a question. I reserve the right to my time.
It is not right.
That was not a question.
Committee can attack
on February 8th,
who is not permitted to reply.
That was not a question. Thank you for your participation. On February 8th, 1982, you testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee about U.S. policy in El Salvador. In that hearing, you dismissed as communist propaganda report about the massacre of El Mozote, in which more than 800 civilians, including children as young as 2 years old, were brutally murdered by U.S.-trained troops. During that massacre, some of those troops bragged about raping a 12-year-old girl before they killed them. Girls before they killed them. You later said that the U.S. policy in El Salvador was a fabulous achievement. Yes or no, do you still think so?
From the day that President Duarte was elected in a free election to this day, El Salvador has been a democracy. That's a fabulous achievement.
Yes or no, do you think that massacre was a fabulous achievement that happened under our watch?
That is a ridiculous question, and I
yes or no?
No.
I will take that as a yes.
I am not going to respond to that kind of personal attack, which is not a question.
Yes or no, would you support an armed faction within Venezuela that engages in war crimes, crimes against humanity or genocide, if you believe they were serving U.S. interest, as you did in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua?
I am not going to respond to that question. I'm sorry. I don't think this entire line of questioning is meant to be real questions, and so I will not reply.
Whether under your watch, a genocide will take place, and you will look the other way because American interests were being upheld, is a fair question, because the American people want to know that anytime we engage a country, that we think about what our actions could be and how we believe our values are being furthered. That is my question. Will you make sure that human rights are not violated and that we uphold international and human rights?
I suppose there is a question in there, and the answer is that the entire thrust of American policy in Venezuela is to support the Venezuelan people's effort to restore democracy to their country. That's our policy.
I don't think anybody disputes that. The question I had for you is that does the interest of the United States include protecting human rights and include protecting people against genocide?
That is always the position of the United States.
Thank you. I yield back my time.
Now that you've seen it, let's be honest about what just happened. That was not a serious inquiry. That was a political ambush dressed up as concern for human rights. The Democrat didn't come looking for answers. She came looking for a headline. No curiosity, no policy discussion, just a greatest hits album of accusations from 40 years ago, delivered like a prosecutor who forgot this is Congress, not law and order. And here's the part they don't want you to notice. Every single time the witness tried to explain, she cut him off. Every time he asked for an actual question, she refused. Why? Because she didn't want answers. Answers ruin narratives. She wanted a soundbite, a viral clip, and a chance to paint Republicans as villains in a foreign policy movie she wrote in her head. Let's talk about the real hypocrisy. Democrats suddenly pretend they're the world's moral police, lecturing about human rights, genocide, and war crimes, while their own party spent decades defending dictators, funding corrupt regimes, and ignoring human rights abuses when it was politically convenient. They only care about morality when a Republican is in the chair. When it's their side, suddenly it's complex geopolitics. And the funniest part? She kept screaming yes or no like she was entitled to run the hearing. That's not how testimony works. You don't get to accuse someone of genocide and then demand a one-word answer like you just won an argument. That's not oversight. That's bullying with a microphone. Meanwhile, the Republican witness stayed calm, refused to play along, and brought the conversation back to the actual policy. Supporting democracy in Venezuela and protecting human rights. No theatrics. No emotional blackmail. Just facts. And notice how, the moment he finally answered a real question, suddenly she was satisfied and yielded back. Mission accomplished. Smear delivered. This exchange exposed exactly how Democrats operate in these hearings. They don't investigate, they interrogate. They don't ask, they accuse. And they don't want the truth, they want the clip. The Republican handled it with restraint, dignity, and constitutional backbone. And that's why this moment hit so hard. Because one side came to govern. The other side came to perform.